students were more enthusiastic because they say we want to understand Islam well. When we become doctors, we can communicate better with the Muslim patients. You know, we get more money that way. So basically, there isn't much resistance to this because it's normal. When Japan wanted to develop industrially, they went back to their values. The Chinese also, China closed its borders. They went back into their own Chinese culture and history and legacy. And then when they opened, they were already very strong. Something, Koreans are also in the same way. Before they take off, they look back. So we Muslims, we cannot grow and prosper and be powerful unless we are grounded in our own heritage, intellectual heritage. So this is all what about Islamic input is all about.
Assalamu alaikum.
Okay.
Okay. You have certificate.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My dearest brothers and sisters and keynote speakers who are here, I'm sorry I should come early in the morning today, but then I had to stay home in order to finalize my paper actually. And then the second one, I promised Professor Dr. Osman to come on time at 2 o'clock, but I could not because there was a serious traffic accident here. So I was stuck like 35 minutes on my way to UBD. So I was very sorry for the time lost for myself and eventually for the participant for this great conference. So, okay, right. I have a very simple topic. Since from historical perspective, I'm a historian, so I cannot talk as elaborate as keynote speakers and also like Professor Dr. Osman as such about ethic and morality. Indeed, I have been confused between ethic and morality, so I take the more practical one, morality, and maybe I'm confused in using it consistently throughout my paper. Now, the general idea of writing this one was first inspired by the collections of articles concerning adab in South Asian, not Southeast Asia, Indian subcontinent, Islamic tradition there. So in that adab, eventually it was important for me as a historian to look and compare what happened in history and eventually in modern subcontinent as such about the development of morality among many different segments of Muslim in South Asia. Now, and the second one is that when I look at Southeast Asia, which is my major field of research, it is very rare that indeed morality or ethic as developed by Muslims or developed among Muslims in Southeast Asia have been studied. So I had been doing this one for quite some time, eventually I neglected until I joined SOASCIS in the past few months as such. So I started actually toward the end of the 90s to collect some material concerning morality as I understand it, or adab in Southeast Asia. Now, the major point that I want to stress here is that Islam quite clearly has been religion of majority among inhabitants of the Malay world as such, or Malay world here in Brunei, Malaysia and Indonesia as such. And this means that Islam has been part and parcel of life of many Muslims in the regions. As a result, there has been one way or the other accommodate and also what you call change local custom, when you call it adat. So this is what come to my mind about adat and statecraft. But then, as we know in Southeast Asia, the role of sultanate, the role of kerajaan, the role of state has been very crucial in founding Islam in Southeast Asia. There are exceptions, of course, in many different places. So what I am intending to do here is to look at historically how the state played a role in developing this kind of basic morality of Islamic teaching among Muslims in Southeast Asia. When the state declined, what I found, that local leaders, including the ulama, the upholders of traditions at local level, eventually played a major role in providing model for Islamic morality in my case. Not only that, but we also see what you call two things that emerge. One is the literature written by all these scholars, from Adab al-Libas, Ta'limul Muta'allim, translation as such, Umdatul Muallim of Patani, and so on and so forth. This become very important guide for the development of morality among Muslims, especially among the students in many different educational centers in Southeast Asia, from Pondok eventually to what you call centers in what you call capital cities or port cities as such. Now, then the second one, what is also interesting, that I brought to Southeast Asia from the tradition in South Asia, that is the persons who succeeded in representing the closest ideal of morality as outlined in the literature. And this has become very crucial. Persons become model. In Southeast Asia, like in South Asia, I suppose this is crucial when literacy was very limited, and also because learning was very expensive. So therefore, this was one important what you call development in Southeast Asia. But of course, it was at the cost of intellectualizations of tradition in Southeast Asia. Rarely we have what you call that intellectualizations of approach to Islam after the 17th century, and we have to wait until the 20th century later. All right, now, so, and then historical process, interaction, and so on, Islamic current. Actually, these are the process that I would like to address here in my paper, and the last one, modernization and scolarization. What bothered me about all this one is that since the Pacific War, with the emergence of new nation state in Southeast Asia, we see that nation building meaning material and spiritual development. So this has been there throughout Southeast Asia, whether it is Catholics, Buddhists, Muslims, societies in Southeast Asia. In the case of Malaysia, Malaya first, Brunei, Indonesia, this was also the case, as translated in many different kind of ideologies, and also the slogan of the state, or motto of development and all. Now, exactly this is what we are addressing. First, pre-nation state period in Southeast Asia. What kind of institution we have? So, of course, the state, Islamic state in Southeast Asia, from Aceh to Ternate, we see the emergence of Qadi. Perhaps, as argued by many different scholars, whether we have Mahkamah Qadi or not, that's a different matter altogether. But at least we have Qadi, and maybe mosque was the institutions or physical institution of that part. We don't have elaborate system of, as far as I know, the office of Muhtasib, Ahlul Hisbah, Ahlul Shurta. So we don't have that in Southeast Asia, as far as I know. Maybe our colleague from Aceh can elaborate more on this historian of Aceh as such, because Aceh is quite elaborate in developing bureaucracy in the capital of Darussalam at the time. Now, and the second one, the court works, I'm talking about the Fustenspiegel, talking the mirror of the kings, from Tajus Salatin, Bustanus Salatin, to Tuhfatun Nafis, from Aceh to Riau. These are the greatest representative of Muslim centers in Southeast Asia. Of course, we're talking Malacca, we're talking about many other centers, but these are, of course, prominent in elaborating many other aspects of Islamic teaching in Southeast Asia. So we see Raja Ali Haji in Tuhfatun Nafis, in a sense, represent what Ghazali actually argued earlier concerning either Nasihatul Muluk of Ghazali and many other of his work as such. Right. Now, so these are important in providing example of all this one, and of course the work of Bustanus Salatin, by Araniri, can be seen in many different light, many different angles. But of course, it was, to my understanding, the image of Raniri was blessing and also catastrophe one way or the other. And these are interesting in the context of development of intellectual traditions and perhaps also morality, a different kind of morality developed by the generations of Hamzah Fansuri and now the generation of Raniri. And later, of course, we see many new scholars who eventually plunge more into the kind of practical teaching in Southeast Asia. Now, and then the second one, again, I'm returning here to the state. After the Pacific War, we see independent state from Malaya, Brunei, and Indonesia. We see that what you call ideologies in Southeast Asia, from Pancasila to MIB, Melayu, Islam Beraja, Malay, Islamic monarchy in Brunei. So this has been very clear how the kind of moral, the kind of morality, the kind of ethic that all these states want to put the agenda for the future. Quite clearly, in the case of Pancasila, in Indonesia, Pancasila has been played around in many different angles, but seems that the Indonesians are happy with Pancasila, but of course then this is in a sense what you call a gift and also in a sense challenge for a Muslim community, how to translate their own ideals and also to deal with the reality of nation state. But as we see, nation state remain the best example of how we live. And 22nd century, perhaps we'll see the model of nation state, particularly maybe second half of the 21st century as such. Right, now the second one, school textbooks. And this is very interesting. Indeed, I compare this one to Daud Patani's work. Umdatul, just correct me if I'm wrong, Umdatul Muallim, and the other one, Jam'ul, okay, Jam'ul Fawaid. Yeah, Jam'ul Fawaid, yeah. So this is talking about very detailed thing that that guideline. As Muslims, as wife, as husband, as workers, as teachers, and so on and so forth. So specific component of it, and comparable to what I deal a little bit, and quite Dr. I'm sure deal with morality in the School of Brunei, and indeed many as compared to what happened in Malaysia and Indonesia, perhaps not very far different in what you call using morality. We call morality, or school took textbook in order to develop the kind of morality, the kind of personals that we want from our schools. So we see here, of course, we have MIB, we have civics in Brunei, and very interesting that it was, it has been developed in such a way that it can be very practical and in a sense also providing thought for the student as such. Now, yeah, so this is a longer term, but I would like to generalize for this one, meaning that compared to what happened with the state, now we see the what you call the self-propelled society, not centralized like the state, but indeed the local leaders, religious leaders play an important role in providing that kind of writing, providing what you call paradigm for personal, for Muslim personality as such, or as morality for individual as such. Now the what you call the religious writing and moral standard, we can quote to many different scholars in Southeast Asia, from Raniri to Daud Patani, and to what you call many different translations that eventually become very popular, Ta'limul Muta'allim, and I'm still puzzled by studying that interesting books. So it is well known in Southeast Asia that Southeast Asians are generally categorized as Shafi'i, but then Ta'limul Muta'allim certainly is not written by the Shafi'i. So indeed, this was interesting that what you call Zarnuji is from Central Asia, and the work become very popular in Southeast Asia. So actually, this is opening of many different kind of ideas in Southeast Asia, as can be seen in the context of Ta'limul Muta'allim. Now, I run a little bit here. I hope it's not confusing too far, but I'm sure I do. But here we're talking about what kind of morality developed by many different movements in modern Southeast Asia. So we see the earlier reformisms. I referred to Araniri, he criticized the Wujudis and Aceh, and eventually developed the kind of scripturalist approach to Islam since the mid-17th century as such. And this quite clearly also developed into a kind of morality as Araniri actually implement. And the second one, Padri movement in West Sumatra, has been called as either it was the Muslim fanatics, Wahhabis, whatever the epithet given to them, or the identification. But this is very clear that West Sumatran at the time want to go deeper into the spirit of Islamic teaching instead of being dirtied by many different local practices in the form of adat and so on and so forth. So in a sense, this was just a kind of idea to develop a new elan about what Islam is. And then the next one, the Pondok institutions. It has been debated when the Pondok actually has been there since before 19th century, but historically it is very clear that Pondok has been quite recent one, as we know, developed in the 20th century, for example. So quite clearly, it was in a sense derivative of palace school that developed in many different parts of Aceh, many different parts of Southeast Asia. But then again, it became very important when the central authority became weakened and so on. So this also developed the kind of philosophy to life, meaning the simple life, survival, in terms of morality, in terms of religions, in terms of living as such in such institutions. So this also developed very strong, very important, and very wide networking kind of institution. So becoming very popular in keeping Muslims close to their religion as such. And then the second one here, I got Al-Imam groups. Al-Imam actually was the name of the first Malay Islamic journal in Southeast Asia, published in Singapore, interestingly, not published in Kuala Lumpur or Jakarta, but published in Singapore by a group of enlightened new generations of Muslims in Southeast Asia. So this quite clearly argue about the importance of opening Muslim society. What kind of individual that we need, what kind of society we need, what kind of future that we want. So Al-Imam outlined, in a sense, new trajectory for Muslims in Southeast Asia, so injecting new morality to and new ideas, new element for Muslims in Southeast Asia. Islamic organization, we see the emergence of many Muslim organizations in the beginning of the 20th century, from Syarikat Islam to Hizbul Muslimin in Malay as such, just to mention few. And not to neglect what William Rauf actually argued along, that Majlis Ugama Islam dan Adat Istiadat Melayu, especially that of Kelantan, was considered as an important model of organization in Malaya. Eventually we have to wait for quite some time in the emergence of the NGO like Hizbul Muslimin later. And then the last one here, new generations, I'm referring to the Da'wah phenomena in Southeast Asia, 1960s, 1970s, and we have here witnesses and also players of this new generation who eventually reformulate the kind of agenda for the future and how the heritage legacy would be used as a means of moving forward in new era, new opportunity, and also the globalized world as such. All right. Now, here I'm talking about the one, so I hope I can run very fast here. So, for one, the plan of having a balanced development has been there since the Pacific War among many different regime states in Southeast Asia. So, in a sense, this also represents development in the context of comprehensiveness, morality and spiritual well-being of individual in Southeast Asia continues to be very important. Now, then for Muslims, the globalizations, in a sense, should not be considered as something endangering their existence, but indeed opportunity. So this has been clearly possible because Muslims not only what you call stress the importance of GDP, GNP, but Muslims also consider important to see that morality and the quality of individual actually what you call developed as such. Now the centrality of Islam by many different means developed by the state, developed by the leaders, literature, the living proof of Islam as such, has made Islam a living reality, not only in villages, but also in the central power of the palace as such. So therefore, because of this, then indeed it is very interesting to see how morality has developed through history in Southeast Asia. Now, what we see is that the state in Southeast Asia has played an important role in providing the kind of institutionalizations from SIC body to what you call the kind of textbook that spread in Southeast Asia as such. Now, the second one, the ulama, the independent leaders, NGOs, and so on in modern period, these are important. Now, the last point that I would like to share with my colleague is that certainly it is cheering to see that our center here, SOASCIS, has what you call put a lot of emphasis on what you call on the study, on research of ethics as such, and this has been shared by international audience, international scholars as such. So this is enlightening, but I think myself as a historian, indeed we have quite interesting legacy traditions of the past that perhaps also can provide an important what you call input, comparisons to what we are doing. We are facing in what you call in the study and also in developing the kind of ethic and morality for us in the globalized world as such. So I think with that I end my presentation, and thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Merci. Dr. Ariffin close speech with merci in French. Then in French, yeah.
Forgive me, I'm sitting down. Okay, I'm Salwa from the Institute of Education, Sultan Hassan Al Bolkiah. I'm a lecturer there. Since my background is, I'm in the field of guidance and counseling, so I would like to pose a question to the first presenter, Dr. Norhazlin. Okay, as a counselor, we face a lot of challenging social issues, and one of the issues is gay. Right. There are some clients that we have who are gay, and there are teachers with Islamic education background. Believe me, they have their own organization, they have their own president, they have their own activities, activities, gatherings, and whatnot. So, how can you relate your topic that is inculcating the ethical values education curriculum to help this group of people? Yeah. Right? And that, because what makes it more challenging is they are educated. They have Islamic education background. And, you know, what we say, they know better in regard to religion. You know what I mean? So how can you, you know, help this group of people by, you know, inculcating the ethical values? Because your paper is interesting and I would like to know more. Inshallah. Thank you very much.
Please.
Thank you, Dr. Rajasalwa. Okay, you're talking about this is already the product of Shibi. Yeah, it's not in the process. So we just hope that perhaps that we can refine or revise back how we teach, especially with Islamic education background. Yeah. Okay, but then although they know all these things, but it depends on the person himself. I mean, but then we must do investigation as well. There are categories of gay. I mean, is it Hulsa or, I mean, or no, is he pure man? I mean,
well, I'm sure there's a difference between Hulsa and gay.
Okay, so
they are gay. They are males.
Okay.
Right? And they are normal. I mean, in a sense, physical normal, but they have feelings with the same sex, same gender. Sorry.
So it's the inner side then the iman. I mean, because I mean, I'm also the lecturer, Islamic education lecturer. I mean, we done our part, but then I haven't come across with this gay with Islamic education background. I mean, I know which intake. I mean,
we have our ethical issues here. I can't reveal which intake.
Yeah, is it 2000?
Yes, we do have clients. Sorry.
Okay.
We do have clients, and some of our counselors, they, you know, quote unquote, become spy, so that we can get data. Real data. So they go, our counselors, they go to these parties and gatherings where the gay are every weekends, and there are people with education background, Islamic education, and during the day, when they are as teachers, they will, you know, talk about religious matters and issues, but during weekends they will do another activities. So how could you, you know, help us as a counselor? We are really facing this issue, very challenging to us.
Yeah. I would like to admit that myself is not a counselor, so I think that's important. I mean, maybe someone's, I mean, to help you as a counselor. I mean, to counsel these gay students.
Probably, can I rephrase my question?
Okay.
How can you relate the title of your paper to help this group of people? Because the title of paper is to inculcate ethical values, and be it whether you are a counselor or educator. I'm not asking you to counsel, no, but how can you help the counselors or ourselves to inculcating these ethical values?
We can help by the response
as educators as well.
Yeah, perhaps that we have to sit down. I mean, because this is my first time to know that there are Islamic education background with this trade. Yeah, as my research is more on towards the yeah. Okay.
Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Yeah, the issue that the sister is raising is a very serious one, but hopefully it can be solved. To start with, this gay behavior did not start at the university when they took Islamic studies. It must be in their background somewhere. So the problem does not lie in the university. It's in their background. As they grew up, they were exposed to certain things and certain people. So although they come to the university and we teach them, you cannot change what's already well established. Because the Sayyidah Aisha radiallahu anha said that if they tell you that a big mountain moved from one place to another, believe it. But don't believe that somebody changed their character. Because once character is formed, and it forms very early in life, by the age of 7, years, much of our character is formed. So if people grow up in a certain environment where they see this evil and things, it's a difficult process to change it. So I don't want us to blame the university or the teachers. They came with that there. But then, after we run into this problem, how do we solve it? Me, I think we better treat it as a medical problem. It's much easier. We treat it as a medical problem that requires therapy and investigation. We treat them as victims. We do not want to punish them, but we treat it as a medical problem with counselors and doctors. Hopefully we can change it. In Malaysia, we did have experience with this. But what I discovered is that it's not the gay in the sense of the Western. You know, there is even a word, a Malay word called ponda. Yeah, it's not gay in the Western sense. They do things, they walk in a certain way, talk in a certain way, but it's not gay sexually as happens in the West. So maybe it's not as big a problem as we may think. But it exists in our Malay society. We even have got a word for it. But it's different from the Western homosexualism. And it's more benign. And I think we can handle it.
Yeah, before I give to Professor Tariq, then I was told that at 22nd April, Parliament of France conduct the rule of marriage of gay. Yeah, at 22nd April. At the time I came to Paris, and at night the Parliament conduct this.
Is there a relationship between and the vote?
Please.
I will support it.
I agree with Professor Kasule. It's a big question. And let me tell you something about my experience with this, because I had to deal with it at different levels. And before even coming to this, I want I want you to be aware of something which is happening now. And especially in the West, where many of our brothers and sisters, sometimes they don't really trust we have two trends. People who are completely following the shuyukh coming from the Middle East, and now people who are following the professors in the universities that are trained. And we have a trend now, not only in the US, at the beginning it was in the US, but now it's at the European level. We have organizations and we have books where people from within, and we have a book on Islam and homosexuality, where now some are trying to reinterpret Islam by saying it's not anti-Islamic. So it's a scholarly push, criticizing the verse or the interpretation of the verses and the ahadith. And you have now, I saw people who have been working with us at the grassroots level for 20 years, changing their mind because they were convinced that it might be wrong the way we deal with it. So this is one challenge that we cannot avoid. It's going to come back here, because the homosexuality is not a Western reality. It's a reality even in Saudi Arabia. So now we have to face it as it is and to be serious about it. Second is, first we have to be equipped, Islamically speaking, you as a counselor or anyone who is dealing with people, to be clear as to the Islamic principles and to be open as to the humanity of the people you are dealing with. And I agree, we can deal with them in a way where they are victims. I'm not sure that someone who you treat as a victim will accept this. But I think that there is two attitudes that are very important. To be able to show that from your perspective, from an Islamic perspective, that's wrong. But from a human perspective, you don't condemn the people. Respecting the being, condemning the behavior. Which is something which is important. Don't condemn the being, and then this is where we need to listen. You need to listen.
And I'm not sure, I don't know, in my life I was going along more than 30 people, Muslims or converts, coming to me and telling me this is what I'm experiencing and I'm suffering. Some were suffering and some were assertive. And you have to deal with psychology, you have to deal with, and this is where, to be able to come with the ethical ground, it's not because you commit that sin that you are not ethical in other ways. So to value the ethical dimension of your behavior while we say this is not what we think is right. I think that all this, it has to do with nuances, it has to do with no condemnation. There are two things that we have to stop in the Muslim communities. First, being blind our own problems, about what is happening. And second, is condemnation, to be judgmental. And this is why you have to be, so to be ethical. Ethics is not about judging people. Ethics is about directing people. Ethics is about the goals. It's not about you are right or you are wrong. So, but to be clear as to your principles, so you have to be equipped, Islamically speaking, about, and not, in a way which is very simplistic and say, no, this is, because, we are not dealing with children. We are dealing with very sophisticated mind. I had a TV program last week, 10 days ago, in France, with the first homosexual imam in Paris. Don't laugh, don't laugh. I was facing someone who was intellectually very sophisticated. He learned Arabic, he quoted the Quran, and he's able to destroy anyone who has no knowledge about Islam by saying, okay, this is the verse, this is the hadith, this hadith is weak, this, and you say, okay. Very, very smart, very, very intelligent, and saying, yes, I'm married with a man.